Okay, and we'll let's go. Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Lina, and I'm a partnered variety streamer with a focus on League of Legends and single-player story games. Today, I'm going to go over what I changed on my stream to get over my stagnant viewership and reach Twitch partner. So from my experience, there are three main reasons why viewership might be stagnant on your channel. You might not be streaming regularly enough for people to watch you as part of their schedule. People are creatures of habit, so that might be that when they get home from work, then they turn on Twitch in the evenings. They might watch you at lunch times. They might watch you before they cook dinner. And if your stream isn't on when they're available to watch, they'll find someone else to be more consistent and fill that gap. Maybe your retention is bad, perhaps people are clicking on your stream, but there's not enough happening that they're entertained enough to want to stay. And lastly, perhaps you're buried at the bottom of the browsing page and have no way for people to actually discover your content. So, when addressing a lack of growth, you should ask yourself which of these is the reason why, or maybe it's a combination of all of them, and then address it accordingly. So regarding your schedule, as students, you will have limited time to stream, but in that case, I recommend streaming for fewer hours more often than many hours infrequently. Twitch recommends that you stream for at least 2 hours in one block, so perhaps if you're starting off streaming, you could do 3 2-hour blocks as opposed to infrequent longer streams. And if you have more time than that, I would still recommend starting small and building up hours to make sure that you can manage this schedule alongside your studies and to prevent yourself from burning out. I personally stream for 5 hours 5 times a week, and occasionally I'll do extra streams if I feel like I'm able to. I'm often late to my streams, so don't do that, because those that used to sit in my chat waiting for me to start don't do that anymore. And it's also important to prevent burnout, so make sure you schedule in breaks in advance, because you want your viewers to know when you won't be streaming and when they can expect you back. So I don't stream on 2 days of the week, but people always know that I'll be about on Wednesday after my break. And then the next slide. Okay, so regarding retention, when starting off streaming, I'd already spent a lot of time in other streamers' communities, so I emulated a lot of their behaviors, which I knew were successful. I noticed that my friend had a great memory for things happening with individuals, so that was something I strived to do as well. If someone told me something in one stream, I would try my best to remember it and ask them about it the next time I saw them. And so that connection meant that they're more likely to come back the time after. She prepared patterns of speech for thanking people for subscriptions and raids so that she was never lost for words and was always able to introduce herself if surprised. I really recommend you do this so that you don't get raided and then panic, as I used to do that. I would watch my own VODs and see how often I spoke. I recommend you do this because often when I go to a smaller streamer's channel, someone who's less experienced, there's silence for a few minutes at a time quite often, and in that time somebody could click on your channel, watch, hear nothing, and then leave. And also, often I see people just streaming in a voice call with friends who aren't streamers, and I personally feel that if these friends are established regulars on your channel, that might work for your communities, but to a new viewer, I found it really hard to follow along to, so I would personally go elsewhere if I saw this on someone's stream. And sometimes people's sound is really bad, and that's off-putting as its own thing, and I'll cover this later on in the presentation, but taking an hour or two to tweak your microphone filters is one of the best time investments that you can make in your stream. I didn't get any water before I started this. This was a mistake. And then lastly, you want to make sure that your channel has enough draw, and this was personally where I was falling short. So after a couple of months of streaming, I realized that my growth was stagnant on my channel. Taking a step back from the stream, I had a look over with stakes over me. I had a look over my channel from the perspective of a viewer and tried to figure out things that I could be doing better and what could be neatened up. I wanted my channel to be cohesive to one brand rather than looking like just a girl behind a computer. My schedule was good, my retention was pretty decent, but that was only once people had given my channel a chance. But everything else was such a mess that was off-putting and stopping people from staying. So before I move on, I want to address how some extremely large streamers don't have a noticeable brand on their channels, but that's because they themselves are the brand and they're already established on other platforms such as YouTube, or they're professional esports players. But for the rest of us, we need to do a little bit extra to get off the ground and get noticed. And rebranding might be daunting, but it's a great opportunity to be creative and express yourself. Okay, so regarding rebranding, so this brings us to our next section, design and accessibility. So when rebranding your stream, keep in mind the following. You want your panels to look okay when they're single column on the mobile app, and panel arrangements on desktop can be anything from 2 to 5 wide depending on the user's configuration. So you want to make sure that looks good regardless of the configuration. And do your assets work on both light and dark mode, because on Twitch people use both. And you need to keep this in mind for your panels, your emotes, and your badges. Something that I see people skip over often because they don't think about it is your channel information accessible to someone with a screen reader? I've seen some streamers use weird symbols that would be a headache to listen to on their panels. I've seen some streamers use some weird symbols that would be a headache to listen to, and I've seen some streamers not use any text at all and put the text as images on their panels directly, but there's no alt text on Twitch, so this is entirely inaccessible to a lot of people. You can feed all the text through an online text-to-speech reader to see if any symbols are pronounced that shouldn't be. I personally use flower icons as section breaks so that people with screen readers won't have to hear every time I want to separate sections. Next, have you implemented closed captions on your stream? These can be toggled off by viewers that don't need them on the video player, directly, but they make so much difference to those that need them. Even if they aren't perfect, somebody who relies on closed captions will be able to make sense of them, in addition to the other tools that they use to understand audio. Sorry about my cat. I have a viewer who is deaf and vision impaired, and one time I raided a friend who didn't use closed captions. The viewer had to write to the streamer saying that her channel looked amazing, but they were unable to watch because they couldn't hear what she was saying. Thankfully, as a result, my friend added closed captions there and then, as she realized how important it was. I've included the plugin for OBS in the resources section if you'd like to do that for your own stream, so that's at the end of the presentation. Okay, now I'm going to go over a case study of what I personally did. After a few months of quick growth from starting out with the help of my friends' communities, my goodness, she is so loud. I noticed that things started to slow down growth-wise. I had been streaming to 30 to 40 viewer average for several months and nothing had changed. So I took a step back from streaming and had a look at my channel to see what I could be doing better. I was still getting raided by friends, but most of the viewers from the raids were dropping off as soon as they saw my channel. Looking at it with a fresh perspective, it was easy to see why, because everything looked amateur and thrown together. Also, if at any point anyone has any questions, please just put them in the chat and I am happy to answer. So, I decided to spend a few months rebranding my stream in my spare time. For me, my viewers were retaining once they actively watched my content, but some viewers were leaving upon arriving from raids because they didn't like what they saw compared to the channel they'd just been in. Once I launched the rebrand, raids started sticking and the jump was incredibly noticeable in viewership. But if you're struggling to start rebranding and picking a theme, my recommendation for a resource is Pinterest. So we'll go over that. And I personally really rate Pinterest as a resource because you only need to save a few images before it starts showing you more automatically that you can add to your board. Do you feel like you have an advantage being a girl on Twitch? Not trying to sound rude. Okay, so there are some people that are probably going to prefer to watch girls for the wrong reasons, but I also feel... Sorry, may I just get a drink really quickly? My throat is starting to get really dry. I know that I should have done this beforehand, but I will literally be 30 seconds. So I feel like this is a topic that's often discussed, especially on Twitter. But if you look at the top streamers in any category, there are very few women at the top. And so I feel like whilst it might be an advantage when you're first starting off, it's actually going to hinder you past a certain point. But also, I feel like socially, women are raised to have pretty good people skills, and that might be the difference between retention in a small community, is that generally women are pretty good at speaking to people. That's just personal anecdote though, so I don't know whether that actually holds any weight. But when looking at my male friends that stream, I haven't really seen any difference in their growth between the men and women that I know. But I think that's generally because they're all around the same quality of streamer in terms of the way they engage with their chats and their content and stuff like that. So take that how you want. If anyone else has anything to add, feel free. You draw your own emotes? Yes. How would you go about finding someone whose emotes suit your style? I cover this in one of the 3 presentations we're going to do, but artists are all on Twitter, pretty much. And if you search for commissions open, then you'll see a lot. And also, you can go to someone else's channel and see who did their emotes and then reach out to that artist to commission them as well. So if I personally was looking for somebody to do art for me, I would pick someone whose work I already knew and liked from seeing it on other people's channels. Okay, moving on. So I really rate Pinterest as a resource because I already said this. So when you save a few images, it starts showing you more that other people have added to their boards. And then you can just add them and see your nice mood board altogether. Nowadays my channel has an ethereal theme with pink and purple pastels as the main colours. So if you're struggling to come up with a theme, I recommend typing some words into Pinterest and letting that be your starting point. Okay, panels. When redesigning my panels, I had the previous stuff about accessibility in mind, but I also looked to some of my streamer friends for inspiration. So this is my friend Astro's panels. I adored the 3-part illustration and symmetry in the layout. The blocks of text are the same length as the schedule panel, and his social panels match up to his sponsorship. And just as soon as I saw that, I was like, whoa, this looks amazing. I really want to do something like this. And then this is my friend Helen's page. She does translation work in esports, so people are more likely to find her through that than through Twitch. So I feel like she can get away with having less information than the rest of us. But the illustrative panels caught my eye a lot better than something more generic. Okay, so I don't have the text anymore, but these were my old panels before I redid them. And I like aspects of them, but the branding made no sense. I had an Apple plushie, and then I themed my emotes around a ginger cat because I like cats, and they were cute to look at, but if you asked me what my brand was, I wouldn't be able to tell you. And so these are my panels now. I took a lot of inspiration from the 2 sets of panels I showed previously. I put more information than my friends because I'm not as well established, but I included the rest of the information in an FAQ, so it wouldn't be, hopefully, not too overwhelming. The actual panels are much more simple than the previous ones that I had, but I find them more effective for my goal. And I've left more space on the bottom right for more small panels, such as a sponsor if I need them. Okay, next, emotes and badges. So my previous emotes, that's these ones right here, they were a bit too similar to another streamer because they were beige cats in a similar art style, so I wanted something more distinct. Going with the ethereal fairy theme that I had from before, I turned my cat into a magical cat mascot like in Sailor Moon, and I paid a lot of attention to whether the emotes would read well when small, and redrew them about 5 times before I was satisfied. So take note of how many emote slots you have. You can find this if you go to the link in the slide, but replace your username. I recommend making emotes that you would feel would get the most use, so I prioritize basic gestures and emotions over community in-jokes. And the only time I would recommend otherwise is if you feel like the art that's accessible to you isn't as high quality as you would like, so people won't subscribe just because they want the emotes, in which case in-jokes will encourage viewers to use your emotes on stream more often. I personally have a room emote because I used to live on a busy road in London, that's this one down here. And so whenever sirens could be heard outside, people would spam the room emote, which was pretty fun. It's also become our raid message unintentionally. People are like, cat zooming in, wee! And then for my badges, I turned them... Guys, have my mates. For my badges, I turned them from cats in different outfits to cat-shaped foods. Because there was only so many distinct outfits that I could think of, whereas I'm sure I could come up with an endless amount of food. And I know that's something that a friend of mine, Vixie, she was struggling with for a long time, because she had different outfits on her box badges, and she was struggling to think of more ideas for them. So we want to make sure that your idea will work for longer term. Can anyone join us at Limited? What are you referring to? Sorry, Luke? Oh, they're not in the call. Okay, wait, did I read this already? Anyway, when picking colors for my emotes and badges, I made sure that they work on both light and dark mode and also work together. And I've included a website full of color palettes in the resources section if color is something that you struggle with. I personally struggle with color, so that resource is really useful for me. Oh, I do want to make note of, like, so this is my emotes over dark background and then over light background. I personally feel like they work well over both. The emote outline is not black, but is like a dark desaturated pink. And so you can see them on both backgrounds, whereas if it's black, I feel like when you're over a white background, it's going to be too much. Overlays. So here is the before and after overlay for my League of Legends client for when I'm streaming League. Previously, none of the colors worked together, and the information was cluttered and unnecessary. Like, this is really overwhelming. Like, this black text over the background doesn't look nice in when you look at it together with all this. And I think generally it was quite ugly. And I've noticed a lot of smaller streamers' overlays are cluttered like this and hard to make sense of, and you don't need to have every bit of information on screen, as I used to believe. And when redesigning, because my client, the League of Legends client, doesn't take up the whole screen, I decided to make my layout look like a desktop background. So this is the chat as sticky notes, and I made sure that I didn't use too many colors, and the information is a lot more legible. So this is donation, bits, and latest subscriber. So I don't have any of this stuff over here. Audio. Okay, so this I think is really important. Audio filters are necessary for your stream, and to calibrate your audio filters, you can do the following. You place your microphone as close to you as possible without it obstructing anything. So if you use a camera, you want to make sure you can still see your face. Set the sensitivity of your microphone on the microphone itself or in your computer settings so that if you shout, OBS won't go into the red. It might be so quiet once you've done that you're not easily audible, but that's okay because then you fix that with the audio filters afterwards. You can test your audio using the record feature in your streaming software. So you don't need that many filters. I personally only use 4 filters. I use noise suppression, which removes any buzzing noises or light background noise from your microphone input. I then use a noise gate, which makes the microphone only activate within a certain threshold. This can be useful if your keyboard or mouse pick up when you're not speaking, so let's say you're typing in game or you click a lot. Having noise gate can help to filter out those noises. I use a compressor, which evens out the volume of your microphone, so you can be whispering and you can be shouting, and when you're quiet it will boost it, and when you're loud it will lower it. And if things are too quiet, you can add gain to the final output. Gain just makes things louder or quieter by however many decibels you specify. And then lastly, a limiter filter will stop your microphone ever going into the red. So if it's going into the red, it just puts a hard limit on that and makes it quieter. Note that a lot of streamers are hesitant to let the audio go into the yellow on OBS, but that's fine. It's only when it's off the scale that you should change things. Because sometimes I'll go to someone's channel, and because they're hesitant to have the audio go into the yellow, you can't hear them. You can't hear them unless you turn your volume up all the way to max, and then you click on something else, and then you get deafened because your volume is on max. So you need to make sure your audio levels are good. Note that the order of the filters is important, so you want to remove any noise before you start tweaking the volume of things, for example, because if you did that after, let's say you tweaked the volume and then your noise was louder and it was harder to remove, you want to make sure you do it in the right order. As you edit your filters, you can watch in real time as the audio bar changes on OBS. You can stop the recording frequently and listen to it whilst making notes of the values you tested on the filters. I've included a link to the full list of filters in OBS in the resources section. I'm sorry this doesn't cover Streamlabs OBS, but I'm going to assume it's very similar. Okay, now you get to cringe and listen to my voice. And I'm going to drink some water. So, After I updated my audio filters, here's the before and after. Please turn your volume down because the microphone peaks in the example clip. It's very loud. But even though in these two clips, these two following, I'll go after that afterwards. Anyway. Hello. Oh, it's coming up my monitor. What the heck? Can you guys hear it? Hello, this is a test audio without any filters on so that you can see that if I whisper, it sounds like this. And if I shout, it sounds like that. But then afterwards... Versus Golly. So that's me whispering on stream, and this is me shouting. It's coming! It's coming! No! No! So in those two clips, I'm whispering and then shouting, but the microphone stays around the same volume and it's still clear. And so that's how powerful the audio filters are on your streaming software. So you need to make sure you're using them. Okay, next. No! That's not next! No! Sorry. What? Why did that play? Anyway, this brings us to our next section, Discord. Having an active chat on Twitch is more likely when real friendships are formed in your community. Creating a Discord server for when you're not streaming is the best way to do this. And shout out to Chris and Lexi in the chat. They're part of my server. So, having an active Discord is key to fostering a sense of community and to have friendships form within your stream. I've covered this more in the How to Run an Online Community presentation, and I've linked that in the resources section. Which I recommend reading through, but the main points are, like your Twitch channel, your Discord needs to be inviting upon first glance, moderators all need to be on the same page and not undermine one another, and you can have a feedback channel so that your viewers can give suggestions on how to improve your server, and you can have roles that you get by reacting to a post with an emoji for accessibility purposes. We personally in our server have an opt-in pronoun roles, because our space is very LGBTQ+, so people's pronouns aren't always immediately obvious. Somebody just followed my Twitch. It's because I'm recording through OBS. Wait, did you guys hear that? Anyway, we run regular watch parties and games nights in the evenings, and most nights we have several groups of people hanging out in different voice channels. Okay, closing notes. If you decide to rebrand your stream, I recommend taking your time with it and taking a lot of inspiration from successful streamers in your category. Since my rebrand, the retention from streamer friends improved because those landing from raids weren't immediately put off by my channel seeming amateur compared to the channel that they were coming from. A couple of months later, I ended up making partner as well. And to pay it forwards, I prefer to raid small streamers than myself, so if any of you listening stream League of Legends or story-based variety games, please let me know. And thank you for listening to my presentation. I've included some useful resources, and if any of you have any questions, please feel free to ask now or reach out to me over Discord. Okay? Thank you.